Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell here with attorney Rachel Alters, and today we're going to discuss a case against Unum and Disability Insurance Company. And Rachel, this has been a great month for claimants in terms of cases that have been won in federal courts around the country. Especially Unum's had several cases that have been reversed, which were denials of theirs. Yours in particular is in a state of Washington federal court. And we're seeing where, I don't know if it's just, I don't know what's going on in the air, or if the judges are just really starting to get really fed up with the disability insurance companies, and especially on these claims where the insurance companies are trying to pull the wool over their eyes and say, well, judge, there's no objective evidence, when people have conditions that can't physically have objective evidence.
Right.
So give us some background on this case. Obviously, this is not a case that we handled, although we track all of the cases around the country, and important for us to be aware of every single thing and the trends that are going on. So give some background on this case and what kind of things we think that claimants could benefit from and learn from this case.
Sure. This is a very good example of a case where the judge was really upset with Unum for ignoring subjective complaints of a claimant where he had issues. He was suffering from severe fatigue, he had pain, he had lack of concentration, and his job was a specific job where he worked for Costco and he was a programmer, so he had to be hyper-focused and he wasn't able to do his job. And back in 2014 he stopped working. Unum refused to pay him, and they had their doctors do paper reviews, and they never did an IME of the guy. They never even spoke to his doctors, nor did they even speak to the claimant about his issues. And they basically just said, listen, since there's no objective proof that you have a diagnosis, there never has been a diagnosis, and all that the claimant's doctors were relying on were his subjective complaints of the fatigue and his inability to concentrate, and they didn't really have a pinpointed diagnosis. Unum said, we're not going to pay any benefits on this claim.
And then what transpired after that?
Well, after that, the claimant did an appeal and he litigated, and actually the first time they litigated it, the court ruled in favor of the claimant and remanded it back to Unum to do another review to see if he was still disabled, and Unum again denied. And they were relying on the fact that the doctors had no proof of any objective evidence of the fact that he had any kind of disease or any kind of diagnosis. It was just, consistent notes about fatigue, inability to concentrate. I think he had some aches and pains in his muscles, and the doctors were consistently documenting these, but they weren't coming to any conclusions. So Unum's physicians were saying, well, this isn't good enough. This can't be, you can't be disabled unless there's a diagnosis. And the court was extremely upset with that and said, actually, we disagree. You can have a disability without an actual diagnosis.
What was a little bit crazy in the fact pattern of this case was that Unum, this individual had to litigate once, got the case remanded, which means it went back to Unum again to reevaluate.
Right.
And then they went back to the same doctors initially,
right,
who found that the person wasn't disabled. Unum totally chose to not have this person examined, and then and then they deny the claimant again. Then it goes back to the court, and the court's kind of like, the judge was kind of like saying, like, do you think I'm stupid? Like the judge, like, you guys just did the same exact thing. And why do you think it is that Unum? I mean, the judge is basically saying, have the claimant examined. Like, go ahead and get him examined so we can get an opinion. Why do you think the Unum refuses to have the claimant examined?
Well, they don't want to spend the money, and they've been getting away with it for so long that all they have to do is a paper review on these claimants, and they can deny, and no one ever challenges on them. And the judges were not ruling in favor of the claimants. Well, now, like you mentioned earlier, the judges are getting sick and tired of the insurance companies who are constantly doing these paper reviews, refusing to send these claimants to doctors to give real evaluations and examinations that may actually show that these claimants are disabled, and that's what they're trying to avoid.
Well, what you just said is, I think that the insurance companies know that more often than not, a legitimate doctor who examines a claimant who is unable to work, who's giving up their family's income to get maybe 60% or 66% of what they used to make, actually has a real problem. I mean, most people are not insane or come up with crazy reasons to not work because they want to take a 45% pay cut.
Right.
It just doesn't happen like that. But
Right.
I think that what Unum knows is that it's easy for their doctors to pick apart medical records because the doctors aren't doing their medical records for legal purposes or for an insurance company. They're just doing their notes as they claimant came in, told me this, and that's going on, and they document it. And often the treating physician's notes aren't that great.
Right.
So the insurance companies feel like, oh, we can just tear apart their notes because if we have a real doctor look at them, then maybe this doctor we hire is going to do a lot more than what the treating doctor did,
course.
and we're going to get the truth of what's going on here. But let's not do that, and let's just play around with the medical records and not really find out what's going on because courts haven't told us that we have to examine the claimant.
Right.
So that's the truth of, in my opinion, of what's going on. And you know what? They'll continue to do this. They're never going to stop. They're never going to stop this pattern of using these medical reviewing doctors because probably they think a lot of people are going to go away. Also, look how long this took. This is years of back and forth litigation. I don't even know how this claimant was able to support himself. Hopefully there was a family member or somebody who was
Right.
able to bring money into the family or something to pay their bills. But I mean, how often do we get calls where people say they're turning the lights off?
Of course. And unfortunately, with this case, the court did approve that he was disabled and did agree that he was disabled for his own occupation, but the court had to remand it again back to Unum for a review of whether he was disabled from any gainful occupation because that determination hadn't been made yet. So who knows what's going to happen, but you know, it probably could be back in the court's hands sometime soon when Unum denies him again.
So one of the ways to avoid this is to really know what you're doing early on when you first file a claim, when you're on claim. And just because you're on claim like this person was, don't get comfortable and think you're going to stay on claim. You always have to keep your guard up.
Yeah.
And always continue to, you got to educate your doctors as to how they're documenting the medical records as well, because you know that Unum is going to dissect those records and try to take advantage of any weakness in that report to not pay the claim.
Of course.
So if you have a claim with Unum or any long-term disability insurance company, whether you're applying for benefits, appealing, looking for you have to file a lawsuit or a lump sum buyout with Unum Insurance Company, feel free to give Rachel a call or any of our disability insurance attorneys. We offer our services nationwide and we look forward to the opportunity to work with you.